My personal warning alarm on coronavirus, 1 million plus deaths. I want to get this out there as soon as possible, and I will go back and post into the thread some of my supporting perspectives, but here's what means. It does not mean wash your hands and bullshit, yeah, do that, but we are past preventative stage, to increase the chances of not dying or being sick as a dog for weeks. Right now, it's go into the hospital when you show symptoms and suspect corona. That is too late. Whether that's blood pressure, thirst, headache, couch, etc. When a foreign thing enters your body will immediately give a reaction to it. If you blow it off or not aware enough to notice, and let the virus replicate and build enough in numbers to the point where you are actually, then it's too late unless you want to be sick for weeks, be near death, die, everybody in your family going the same exact things. But if you're young, you won't die equals bullshit. Think about this, you are sick as FCK in the hospital bed, as well as other members in your family, and someone in your family dies. Yet, you are completely out of it cause you're sick, and although you don't die, you couldn't say your goodbyes. Anyways, I will edit this later to add in my thoughts. I'm not here to argue about the virus, try to prove my points, try to convince you I am some all-knowing God, or this or that. I am truly giving out with this. MJ will hate me and kick me off the forum, but I will try to bump this every day with more of what I see. For the record, at the time of this writing, equals 10 some in critical condition and on the brink of equals 122 equals 22. This is as of March 5, 2020, 8:37 p.m. Pacific. In 9 to 10 days, New York City will be at 10,000 plus infected. By mid-March, we will be maximum fear level in the stock market sense anyways. Edit 8:15 p.m. 10,000 infected. I removed confirmed as I got ahead of myself. Being confirmed will greatly depend on testing availability. There will be a rather big lag from actual infected and those positive tests. 1 Incubation and symptoms are not immediate. 2 Difficulty to get tests completed. Time delay, shortage of tests, etc. Once number 2 is squared away, there will be a spike of confirmed. Will that happen in 9 to 10 days? Possibly, not sure. If number 2 and number 1 tie in around the same time, then the spike will be quite large. I guess, only in hindsight will we be able to say there likely was 10,000 infected at that point. However, regardless of exact number, the general point is, the number is unimaginably no f-king way high, especially from where we are today. If the number of infected doubles every 6 days, and currently there are 22 cases in NY, wouldn't there be about 66 cases in 9 days? 22 times 2 equals 44. 6 days 44 times 1.5 equals 66. Another 3 days it should take 54 days to get to 10k. 9 doubles at 6 days each. The United States is replaying China all over again. 10 deaths equals don't panic. Low risk. Wash your hands. 100 deaths equals wash your hands. Think about remote work. 1,000 deaths equals schools shut down. Curfew laws in some cities. By 1,000 deaths, it's too late. We will be right back exactly where China is today. Yes, the growth and death rate has topped and slowed there. A big part because they had the culturally luxury of wearing masks and supply, and they shut Hong Kong and China down entirely for weeks. Before the masks don't help you from getting it, masks by fact help prevent one that is sick from spreading it out. Meaning, you walk around for 2 weeks spreading it all around because of masks don't prevent you from getting it, yet unknowingly because of shortage of testing available and difficulty of getting it done? You infect everybody in those 2 weeks. Fact, masks do help. Don't let the stay calm government people tell you some bullshit. Think about the hidden reasonings they have for saying that to you. Except China, Korea, etc. also shut everything down way faster and quicker than us, yet look how significant their blow is and continues to be. We have yet to even publicly say this might get bad, except for WHO, who are getting carry the social stigma as that guy, aka the guy with the Jesus sign yelling at you on the street. I'm not really here to discuss the fundamentals for me being that guy right now. But your question is a genuine question on my logic, so for sure, my reply is think about this math: tilde 10 US deaths, some in critical condition, 100 confirmed infected equals 10%, give or take rough guess. Everywhere else in the world, it's 3%. The numbers are wrong. 10 dead bodies. Can't really argue that. However, the number of infected? Just great. Now CNN just posts as their main headline, the US is not ready for a massive breakout from some town hall meeting. Just know, everything I say in my warning is from my own perspective on seeing things unfold out and it ringing alarms. I hope what they are saying on that town hall is the same and the government takes action. But unlikely not, because right now, I am that guy. And those guys on that town hall are likely being seen by the main public as those guys. Until they're not. You go into the hospital at that point, they'll send you right back home. Not sure what the point would be. I'm more confused now. I don't know what that guy and those guys means. I think there are 233 confirmed infections in the US, and 12 deaths. That's a death rate of 5.15%. If we assume there are more infected, then the death rate goes down. For example, with 5x the infections, the death rate is 1.03%. I'm not saying there won't be millions of deaths in the US, but 10K in 10 days seems quicker than I expect. I expect this virus to have a multitude of small outbreaks across America. And if it gets bad in any one city, everyone will stay inside their homes until it is safe. If people lose their jobs, I expect the government to give extended unemployment benefits until the pandemic threat is over. It's an expression to reflect the fact that speaking frankly about this issue is not socially acceptable. There's an enormous pressure not to talk honestly about it. If you do, you're painfully aware that you're going to be automatically classified in the same group as flat earthers and conspiracy theorists. There's a heavy societal pressure to censor yourself on this topic. Right on. Keep it up. I think 1 million is a conservative estimate. It's surreal to be living through this. With all due respect, I'm going to abstain from the convo. I'm not really looking to discuss or go back and forth about the fundamentals. Note, the numbers change fast and only in one direction. So fast that they changed after my post and right after your reply. That in itself should be a worrying factor. Numbers like these should not be changing that fast unless we are exponentially growing. If you are not willing to deliver real arguments, don't waste time. Show me one country which is seriously prepared for a massive breakout. Who puts this social pressure on you? Because you feel sometimes awkward or insecure about something, it doesn't mean it is the fault of the environment. I was reading about the virus. A lot of people have it and don't even know. It's just a problem for people with bad immune systems. I might have just had it a week ago. Not to worry, most people who are not elderly and will not become critically ill from C0VLD19.98, 4243,38655, 640. Wise idea to start buying some vitamin C tablets or powder. And for the fast learners out there, this whole coronavirus is a gold mine. Maybe it's the time to start wholesaling anti-coronavirus pills. Our president has a hard dilemma to make in the coming days: get our country to shut down and 99% put it into recession and jeopardize election, let death toll rise where there is no other option, aka Italy once it broke 100. We are at 13 now. +1 since I posted this. With 8 in serious critical condition. It won't be that long before we break the 100 death count. Ironically, if he does number 1, he would actually win the elections despite an almost for certain recession. He does number 2, it would go the other way for votes depending on how bad the numbers run up and people begin discussing just how much could have prevented if number 1 was done sooner. Again, not trying to argue. However, I appreciate the perspectives and thoughts. I could be incredibly wrong, and you guys could be incredibly right. In which case, feel free to totally hurl insults at me here on this thread. In a month. Lol. However, I think an unseen benefit is, it also records and shows the exact general public sentiment at the exact current time and stage of the cycle we are in now. My take is, these same sentiments may not sound nearly the same here in a week. I revised that 10,000 confirmed to infected with some additional stuff. I can see where some confusion would be. Nonetheless, I still think 4,000 plus confirmed easy, which is still a crazy number to imagine from today. With the other 6,000 infected in incubation period lag. 1 million dead in the world or the US? And is that in the next 6 months, 1 year, 5 years? I was over in Asia in late January and decided to come back early, but I waited too long to order a ton of face masks. I ordered 500 and sold them all in a few days, then I tried to order thousands and not a single distributor had any left that I could find. I was kicking myself. Could have made tens of thousands. Same. I couldn't keep up with orders and within not even 2 days I was sold out. I have more to sell but am keeping them for family. You are probably not wrong about the death count, but I don't see it as a reason to panic. It's not much worse than a common flu worldwide and I don't see anyone going crazy about it. I don't see how is this any different. You're underestimating exponential growth. This statement isn't an attack on your intelligence. We aren't hardwired to understand exponential growth, and the projections are horrifying. Of course we can't produce test kits exponentially, so the confirmed numbers won't reflect the following projection, but the math is pretty clear. We're doubling cases outside China where the #s are more reliable every 4 to 5 days. That's 6 to 7 doublings every month. We're at 17,000 cases outside China as of 3 or 5 or 20. 25 days to go in the month, so 5 to 6 doublings. We'll be at 500k 1 million cases by the end of March, double 5 to 6 more times and we're at 50 to 100 million cases by the end of April. This means at least 3 million bodies by mid-May. 500 meters to 1 billion cases by end of May. 30 million bodies by mid-June, at the very least. Can we buck the trend? Most likely, but the end result is ultimately the same. The terror of seeing bodies piling up in mass graves will keep people from congregating, which will limit the spread. I think this will shift the curve to the right, but not ultimately change the final #s. People are going to have to work and shop for essentials, so some amount of congregation is inevitable. This means we'll continue to have spread in localized pockets, and as soon as people travel so will the virus. Here's a new prediction for the thread: the hysteria from this outbreak will be used to do away with cash. The governments of the world cannot resist using a tragedy to expand their power, and they've been salivating at the idea of going purely digital currency for years. What better excuse than transmission on cash? How much do you want to wager on that? I'll bet $5,000 there are under 30 million bodies by June 15th. Care to take me up on it? Take half a day to stock up a month's supply of food and essential gear. Then get back to work. A hospital is the last place I would want to go if I felt something. They will pack you in with hundreds of other people who feel sick also. The best way to not panic and keep your business running is to just do some basic preparation and then focus on what you control. I found myself getting concerned too, but then I did a big shop, got some essential gear, and now I have stopped reading the news every day wondering what will happen. Focus on what you control right now and keep your eyes on what matters when it comes to your biz. Big number scary? Take all my money lol. It would be wise for me to reply to the genuine questions. I have zero problems with having good talks with perspectives that are opposite of mine. It's just there are some where the underlying context of the questions are more personal jabs than genuine questions and/or going down a rabbit hole that is mostly irrelevant to the main goal, raise awareness from some very alarming things. Anyways. So, replying back now lol. I think one more people have it then realized too the density of NYC factors into more each per infected. But I absolutely get what you're saying. To throw an even bigger monkey wrench, you then have to subtract the ones that die and the ones that heal who no longer can spread it but still considered having been infected at some time lol. Testing. I get it man, I do. But it's not about you nor I. It's about the family member that we all have that fits in the high mortality rate category. If you know you got it, and you're cleared healthy, then you'll take extra precaution before you go around grandpa or in my case my parents who are both older now. And also, not unknowingly, spreading it to others. Indeed. I don't think China, which our government is taking the same downplaying playbook, thought it would spread that fast either. But I absolutely agree with you. Pockets. Mainly IMO, where winter lasts longer. Northwest, northeast, some southeast, mountain cities. I also agree, there will be government assistance for hardship at some point as well. Totally correct. I think my main argument here is it's more so for the one or two family members we all have that fit in that high mortality rate category. If you know for sure, you definitely won't be going near grandpa. Great question man. Man, I wish I knew. I'm just decent at connecting dots, terrible at seeing anything beforehand. My main objective was to shine light on that. I don't think this is going to be significantly more impacting than H1, Ebola, Zika, swine, etc. or anything this century. But my hunch, depending on what countries it gets to. 1 million in a year is low end globally. It could wipe out 100,000 easily alone in Africa and many other places where healthcare is lacking. Agreed. My only thing is testing. I'd want to personally know to give any family member or people I came close to that fit the higher mortality rate an early warning that hey, take your old butt to the hospital if you start feeling sick. Don't play around you old stubborn fart. Or stay the F away from me, I got it. And by old, I mean anybody over 50. I personally don't think 50 is old, but I think anybody 50 or older will have to take a nice week or two of good old bedridden sickness misery that could be possibly avoided. This, I will have to completely disagree with. My thoughts on this isn't towards you personally but more so at how social conditioning for control works in this case by governments, so the rant isn't at you I promise lol. I am not in panic. Panic is out of control. I am in full control. I am 110% logical. I am emotionally stable. In fact, I am beyond those three, and I am in progressive forward-thinking level, sitting in some good-sized king cash, analyzing, and getting ready to buy a ton of cheap stocks and crypto at public smacks fear level. I am 100% I have been shot at in my young buck teen days. I have seen a massacre of 50+ people from an AR-15 out of a hotel. I have been through a lot of stuff in life. And trust me, what I write in Logic see the term is socially conditioned to be used as almost a personal jab in order to control society. So the outliers like me get called dude quit panicking. The ironic thing about all this is that, those that labeled the people stocking up a bit as panic behavior would be fighting over the last supply of goods because they're out of control. Precautious are not fighting over anything right now. We are, all said and done. There's a crap ton of discrepancy in that number, like still sick, critical condition, not getting tested, etc. etc. Imagine this: you're sitting in under the basketball goal and three guys are dribbling full speed to you, about to dunk on you. Guy A is really fast, but very small. Yeah? He'll dunk on you. But it's not that bad. You probably won't get knocked to the ground and be massacred. Highlight. Guy B is very slow, but very big. You'll just step out the way and not even get dunked on, but if you do, you're in for a pounding. There's a reason why he dominates the NBA. Essentially, this sentence should be rewritten like this: I don't know where and how the WHO calculated the number. It seems to match deaths divided by infected cases. However, of those infected now, some might still die. I think the number could be even higher. If I base my estimations on Italy alone, since I trust their numbers more than those of China. They have 144 deaths and 414 cured. That's a 25% death rate from all closed cases. Since this thread is full of opinion and conjecture, I'll offer a voice of counter-reason also based on conjecture. I'm prepared for the worst, but I'm gonna speculate that it blows over by the summertime. The key metric country I'm watching is South Korea, which very much mimics Western civilization in terms of work, industry, and freedoms. Agreed. Another interesting study is Singapore, as it is hot and fairly humid there right now, so should test the theory of the virus dying in those conditions. Which so far it is still spreading. Dude. China shut everything down in February. This virus started in November. We could thank the retarded Chinese government for jailing the initial doctors that tried to raise awareness rather than listening to them. A serious thing that the CDC pundits keep hinting at but most people are missing: there's a huge amount of people who have the virus and won't show symptoms. Meaning they don't get factored in the death rates. There's a sort of survivor bias going on. Death rate can be even less than 1%. Come on dude. The official number is greater than 80% get no to minor symptom. The first dude who got it in Germany got it, thought it was just a cough, got it Friday, was fine by Monday. Some of the first 9 people who got it in UK, 8 out of 9 had very minor symptoms. Where's the hospital stay? Cruise passenger who got it? I never felt really unwell. You're eating up the hype. This virus is a nothing burger. The truth is, China is a poor country. Its people are malnourished. The per capita GDP is like 9k. It always gets hit harder, and the virus was horribly managed there. Yes to this, totally agree. One thing though, they are doing a lot of testing and surveillance, allowing them to quarantine and treat people. We in the US are not acting fast enough to replicate South Korea. I'm also keeping an eye on countries with decent healthcare and 75+ degree weather, and if the virus spreads as quickly in those countries. LOL, no sooner did I post that than this popped up. There is evidence it will degrade in summer according to Harvard. This is the correct approach. Investing any time into corona past a satisfactory prep period is idiotic. If you're going to die, you're going to die. If you're not going to die, then you should be focusing on growing yourself as a person and your business. Head down. Push forward. Hope for the best. Prepare for the worst. It's the only sensible way to live instead of spending so much mental energy on something you can't control. Here in NZ it's gone to at least 4 cases, Australia is at 60+, despite the fact it's a week past summer and still warm. How that plays out short term should provide a decent idea as to how the warmer weather will affect it in a comparable country like the US. The fact people are still outdoors more of the day must be helping though versus winter inside at close quarters. Finding decent alcohol-based hand sanitizer for when you're out and about is already very difficult here now. What's the best business to invest in during Corona? Your own. While everyone is panicking, you can stay on point and make massive progress. If you are prepared for the worst one day to prep, you hit that stage when it comes. How much time are you spending on this right now? How much is actually productive? Prep and prepare, then back to work. That's a really good point. Perhaps the reason that the flu doesn't spread as easily in the summer is because people are not indoors as much. What qualifies you to opine with such authority? I am taking the virus seriously, but I am not so bold as to declare what it will or will not do. As said, this is loaded with conjecture. He saw this on. Haha, old Alex. Good point, but it's way more fun to worry about the virus. My productivity the past few days is embarrassing. I think it's overhyped. I've lived through the times when people were flipping out over swine flu, bird flu, Ebola, etc., and it always ends the same. The world doesn't end. The scariest thing about C0VLD19 is that it sounds like a corporate Jira ticket. On a more serious note, there is a lot of bad or inaccurate or incomplete data out on the internet, mass media, and forums such as. The deal is, we are all seeking to understand and control a perceived threat that, quite frankly, we cannot control. The best thing we can all do right now is beef up our sanitation and mitigation procedures, stock up a few things in case the hordes buy them all up, and continue doing what we do with our personal businesses. And look for opportunities as things unfold. Good hunting. Lol. I think was more so pointing out how it's more entirely possible than from initial glance. With healthcare advanced as it is today, I doubt a number that high, nor would nations allow a third world country getting hit hard for maximum damage. I think it will all end cause the virus mutated into a weaker form kind of like the flu today. Weird, but viruses are quite smart in that it'll adjust strengths if it starts killing off too many hosts or immunity builds up. Double agree. One thing that concerns me is that it's culturally ingrained to wear masks, so not only did they have a fairly ample supply, people are also willing to totally wear them out and about without being looked at like a weirdo. That, and they were much more efficient in testing. Also, from what I gather, they tested a good chunk of people before they even showed symptoms, so if they were tested positive and in the higher age, etc., then they had a head start in treatment. Pretty much the reverse here. Just from a rough count, I think 2 or 3 replies even here on this thread leaned more towards, "You idiot, don't go in if you have no symptoms. Or even if you do, don't go to the hospital." I think it may be more of a culture difference which may be next to impossible to replicate. Korea. Agreed. I think I more so say, my main thing is, worry for yourself so you don't get your parent or grandparent sick. Or someone else's parent or grandparent sick. Exactly 0. It's all just opinions of mine. Like MJ said, a lot of it is based upon incomplete information. That's very true. Just want to say this: my whole goal about the thread is to raise awareness to things from perspectives that they may not have seen. The end goal, to help people. I risk every bit of looking like a complete fool to do it. Yes, there are many I's and T's that are not dotted and crossed in my paragraphs, but I think some may be overlooking the title of the chapter. I definitely understand and can see where many are coming from. It's a mixed response, as I suspected. Some even as subliminal jabs at my intelligence or character, but most saying things along the lines of "I hear you." Will be interesting to see what really unfolds. Either way, I think my main objective of getting awareness, to get forum members to view this, was accomplished. Therefore, I'm going to abstain from this thread going forward. The goal was to never change minds. I'll keep all my thoughts of stuff from this point on the virus to myself, as I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything other than I am not into the game of told you so, not going to return to this. If things do pan out, feel free to fact check the outcomes on the virus trading thread. No matter how right a prediction played out, I don't even acknowledge it, but maybe once or twice as a reference for my next point. If I'm wrong, I come in and admit I'm wrong. Lol. In 9 to 10 days. Come around March 14th 15th, I'll reread this to myself and chuckle if the crazy numbers I project actually happen. Anyways, I hope that this thread, if things do get a bit on the cuckoo side, will affect and help improve at least one life. I hope that one person refers to this thread in the very back of their mind and goes, that stupid guy on that forum did mention this. Ah, what the hell? Why not? Then proceed to do a suggested action. I'd love to wager. Care to put your money where your mouth is? If that was your goal, I don't think you succeeded. Your post comes off more like you are yelling at people and spouting your own opinions, mixing them in with few facts. Then the fact that you didn't want others responding just made it all seem disingenuous. To me, this whole thread seems like an ego trip. Hey bio, I appreciate your honesty, and see your point of view. Absolutely right. Stop using and reading all those mathematical models that epidemiologists or data scientists are using to predict how many will die or get infected. Nature doesn't work that way. Even modern weather forecasts, an invention of humans since 1835, and we're supposed to be really good at this by now, isn't 100% accurate, not even close, let alone these primitive virus prediction mathematical models. Believing what CNN tells you, ha ha ha. The news are fearmongers. That's how they make their money. This is the only solution how we can handle the coronavirus properly. We have to catch them all with a fishing net. Stop listening to the news, all they do is fear-mongering. 2002 West Nile virus will kill us all. 2004 SARS will kill us all. 2005 bird flu will kill us all. 2009 swine flu will kill us all. 2014 Ebola will kill us all. 2016 Zika will kill us all. Same fear campaign, different year. More people will die from the flu this year. Boy, that mass hysteria is no joke. I'm gonna get some Chinese tonight. Live your life and stop believing everything on TV or online. A minimum of 15 million projected dead. Lmao. Yay, okay. Honestly, knowing Italians and the area where I live, the day the virus came on the news with the first case of the Italian guy who got it, I knew full well a lot of people would be infected. I told my GF in 10 days it's going to be 2K people, just watch. Well, I was wrong, we're over 3K, and I predicted that with the first case. The guy patient 1 was a complete moron. He had clear signs of flu, and while not feeling well he went to social events and played soccer while having flu. Basically he came in contact with hundreds of people in a bunch of days. Like, even if it was normal flu, why do you have to spread it while being so selfish? People who were at lunch, dinner, events, games with him got contagious. Not everyone but a good chunk, who then went on to spread the virus. So how could this be prevented? Well, if the man was conscious enough like that German kid and stayed at f***ing home for 2 to 3 days while having temperature instead of not giving FCK, it would have been much easier to chase down the people that came in contact with him. While right now a whole city is in quarantine and they're preparing to close other cities too. The Italian healthcare, thank God, is free, so a lot of people are getting tested, but it's still not working perfectly, and many people who were in short contact with contagious people can't get tests without waiting for 5 or 6 days. Symptoms disappear, so they don't even get tested most of the time. But this isn't such a serious threat to normal people, and I feel like if the weak part of the population takes care and use masks etc., we can survive with no problems at all. So many resources getting put in prevention and care, so many companies closed and people at home for what, 2 or 3 days of coughing and staying at home. So yeah, if you can prevent it initially like Germany, just do it. Either way, it's not such a serious threat, and once it starts spreading it's over. Unless you put in quarantine whole countries. In Italy there are 20 regions including 2 islands, and even the most remote ones got cases of people with the virus. FYI, death or fatality rate and mortality rate are 2 different things. What is calling mortality is actually the death or fatality rate, number of reported deaths divided by number of reported cases. Mortality is number of deaths divided by total population. Big difference, and not just semantics, as proper terminology is very important. Misinformation begins with the use of improper terminology. conflation of terms, etc., and misinformation leads to noise, confusion, fear and panic. While I'm here, it's worth noting that the CDC has recognized that the virus has probably been in the US for several weeks, 6 to 8 prior to the first diagnosed cases. This is important because :1 the genie is out of the bottle and there is much more community-acquired illness than anyone knows or is talking about. 2 the number of infections is probably much higher than reported, which makes the death rate again, not to be confused with mortality rate than reported. Moreover, many mild cases won't ever be reported, so the actual death rate will be lower still. 3 This is a fast-moving situation and much of what has been stated in this thread is already inaccurate and/or outdated. If you want real-time stats, this YouTube page is a good one. 1 The fact that this is a novel virus means higher severity, which means more fatalities in certain populations, emphasis on overall. This will come and go like MERS, SARS, Ebola and all the other overhyped contagions, and life will go on. 2 It's notable that there are few reported pediatric cases of C0VLD19 and no deaths to date. This is curious, but it could mean that the symptoms are very mild in this population, so as not to be reported. This is both good and bad, good for kids, but bad for people that come into contact with kids, as the kids are unwitting carriers. Also, as opposed to SARS, C0VLD19 does not seem to induce the cytokine storm in younger populations, which is very good news. 3 The Trump admin, like any other government, is downplaying things in order not to cause panic. If Obama were still in office, his admin would be doing the same thing. It's not a conspiracy, it's how governments work and history is rife with example after example. What bothers me most is how the issue is being politicized. Never let a good crisis go to waste, right? Effing media. 4 The biggest threat, IMO, is the potential economic threat the virus poses, which is much larger than the physical threat. A black swan like this lays bare the fragility of globalization and global supply chains. Satellite imagery of China confirms that the world's factory is closed. Be prepared for more disruption. It could get bad. Here's a good map to follow what's going on. The issue with all data is the incomplete data. Confirmed cases versus unconfirmed, the biggest part being no data at all due to no tests done. China says there are 80,000 infections right now with 3,000 deaths, which would make it almost 4% mortality rate. But you really think there's only 80,000 infections in China? Which has 1 billion plus people. Check South Korea and how they have 7,000 infections but only 44 deaths. That is a 6% mortality rate. South Korea's population is 50 million, so 7 in 5,000 people have got it, versus in China where it all started is only 1 or 20,000. Makes no sense to me. There has to be many more cases in China that we don't know about. If you look at a country such as South Korea that will have much more accurate data than China, you can see that the mortality rate is much lower, as well as China's true infected numbers must be vastly off. You were saying that USA has 100 infected but 12 deaths? I also call bullshit on this. There was an article how British Columbia, Canada, where I'm from, has tested more people in our province of 5 million people than the entire United States has with 300 million. There are definitely more infected in the US than what is stated, and the 12 death number does not mean that there is a 10% mortality rate. This is another great website as well. They have detailed information such as mortality rates per age, infections per gender or age. Check this out. If you're between the ages of 10 to 39, you have basically a 2% mortality rate. If you're 40 to 49, that doubles amused to 4%. All the deaths are from the old dudes that are in their 70s plus. Nothing to worry about here, folks. Move along. Bill Gates was right, or was he? It's never popular to sound the alarm. To add on to this, I would look closer at South Korea's number, which is 0.6%. I believe that is the more accurate number if proper containment and measures are taken. Keep in mind, South Korea's death rate is 0.6% because they're actually testing people and then quarantining to stop the spread to sensitive populations. They are testing about 10,000 people per day and have installed drive-through testing facilities to minimize pressure on healthcare system. Right now in the US, we have nowhere near the amount of testing being done or transparency, which worries me. Depending on the numbers you look at, a percentage for C0VLD19 is anywhere from 10 to 20%. Find out the number of ICU units in any given metropolitan area, do the math on current cases and factor in exponential growth, and that is the true concern. ICU overcapacity of the elderly. I do agree with other people that have mentioned that if you are young you do not have too much to worry about. Ultra Festival and SXSW have already been cancelled, and that's not to mention the events that have been cancelled worldwide. These huge events would not be cancelled if this was just the flu, is all I can say. My parents are in their 80s, not all of us are going to move along. My mother was a nurse in the 50s. She told me about a secret tunnel in the hospital where she worked. It had been used to sneak out bodies during the 1918 Spanish flu, so people wouldn't know how many were dying. She said she didn't expect either of them to survive a seasonal flu, much less this one. At least one of them goes to a doctor or hospital every week. Unless this virus is contained soon, I expect to lose one or both of my parents to it. This is where I'm coming from. If I get coronavirus, I'll be fine most likely. However, I can unknowingly transmit that disease to my elderly parents or other high-risk people unknowingly. All these people saying don't worry seem like they don't have any high-risk people in their lives. Yep, I'm worried about my elderly relatives. I'm not ready to lose any of them. Maybe they're just not afraid of suffering or death. Most of the people in my life aren't. Like others have stated, there are older people in my lives I worry for. I worry I could unknowingly pass this on to them. I work in a gym and those places are filthy. Do I quit my job and isolate myself? It's something I am considering. I don't want to be responsible for someone I love getting very sick or worse, dying. South Korea has the most solid numbers of any nation to date. The current mortality death rate is 0.7%, but this is misleading because this is of all comers. From people sick for weeks to those who just barely got sick and we're diagnosed today, some of which will certainly die before they recover from the illness. What we really need is time-based stratification where we break people into weekly cohort groups and follow them over time to recovery or death. Then calculate the mortality for each group. After we get multiple groups with a final disposition, recovery or death, then we can create an intergroup average to get a more accurate rate. Obviously the factors above, i.e. including all people in all phases of illness to calculate mortality, artificially lowers the death rate significantly. However, there are also undiagnosed mild cases that if included would lower the mortality rate. Truthfully, the only way to actually know is to do a proper study by finding a large group of uninfected people, proven business testing for lack of antibodies to the virus, follow them for months. See who died, then test the entire group to look for antibodies to the virus again. This way you would know every single person that had ever gotten the illness, regardless of how mild or severe. Then and only then can you calculate a good reliable mortality rate. There are some other ways to design the study, but you have to make sure you include all possible cases of the virus in your population sample. I went to drop a check off with my dad today. He invited me into his house for a visit and I declined for fear of having CV. My wife, myself, and 2 of my daughters all sick right now. Maybe it's a cold, a flu, or CV. I don't trust the federal government right now that things are under control, and since my parents are in their 60s, I'd rather use good judgment and not trust the information coming out that everything's under control. I think once testing really gets underway, much more light will be shined on this thing. I am fairly optimistic that there are far more infections than we are aware of, and most people will recover without an issue. In other news, the crazies are buying up bottled water from Costco. WTF? I bought $3,000 worth of food and supplies appropriate to keep my 2 homes operational and sanitary. I'm gonna sit back and relax while things unfold. Side note: the commercial labs in Oregon supposedly should be able to do the testing here in the next 2 weeks. Some notes from one of this country's top experts in epidemiology from Harvard, from Ray Dalio. You're more likely to die in a car crash than of C0VLD19. Stop fear-mongering people. Take precautions and be prepared, but don't panic, it doesn't help anyone. Guys, I think it's really important to be careful who you listen to on this. We really need a sober analysis of what the dangers are and aren't. On the one hand, you don't want to be underprepared, but on the other hand you don't want to unnecessarily freak out. It's important to get realistic takes on what's going on. Use reputable sources that are free from sensationalism. Keep in mind that while this is a somewhat serious situation, the media has a vested interest in keeping your eyes glued to their channel. Stick with primary sources like the CDC and the WHO. This site is a search engine that only links to reputable sources. Holy shit, I can't believe I'm reading this here. Do not do this. You guys aren't doctors and have no right on selling any type of coronavirus treatment or prevention. If there's a legitimate treatment, the CDC or WHO will underline what is effective. Right now it's basically soap and hand sanitizer. This forum is all about ethical entrepreneurship. Amazon has been pulling items that purport to be coronavirus treatments. Guys, come on. This is the type of stuff that gives capitalism a bad rap. Let's go back a few months. If you get sick, a hospital isn't going to be able to do much for you, especially if you aren't one of the first to get sick. You need to be prepared to monitor your own health numbers. First, it is helpful to know if you are getting sick. I bought a temporal artery thermometer. Scans your forehead and is considered as accurate as an oral thermometer or rectal thermometer, and am taking daily baseline readings. The likely first sign would be a fever, so I'm monitoring for an uptick of more than 1 degree Fahrenheit. Second, if you do get sick, you need to monitor your lung function, because the biggest risk with C0VLD19 is ARDS. For this, a pulse oximeter is an inexpensive and simple way to measure blood oxygen levels. For me personally, I have a baseline between 98% and 100%. If I get sick, I'll just self-quarantine and ride it out with fluids and fever meds and continue monitoring my blood pressure and blood oxygen levels. If my blood oxygen level falls below 90%, that is when I will know that shit is about to hit the fan for me personally, and that is the only time I think I should attempt to get to a hospital and hope they still have oxygen available. The chance of me getting ARDS is pretty low, even if I get the virus, but I will at least have the means to monitor my own health in the meantime. You do look like a complete fool if you start a thread like this without your I's and T's dotted. There's more awareness being spread than virus at this point. I'm sick with that. There's another thread to discuss this as well. Don't forget the 30-second rule and the sanitizer when you wash your hands. From this thread. Literally what I've been saying. It's just like the flu. People die from the flu all the time. But the stock market doesn't crash. I freaking love this Girl Plus rep if we ever get it back. That guy is a retard. He leaves out, or it's edited out, that number is if we did absolutely nothing to curtail its spread. Savage. Agreed. No awareness, no intervention, no sanitizers, no increase in other forms of sanitation, no isolation. This is what could happen if everyone did nothing at all. What's infuriating is how irresponsible our mainstream media has become. It's all about clicks and views now. They literally stand for nothing, so they can post interviews like that without a measured context. So posters like in this thread freak out and start hoarding toilet paper. Love this graphic. It shows how hysterical we have become over this. I am not advocating a complete disregard of increasing preparedness or sanitation. But society is being very unreasonably fearful, which will probably result in far more deaths. Might be a little too hasty to conclude that the guy is a retard, but I agree 60% seems a little high. I think it was just more of a warning of what could happen and to be sufficiently worried. Worry too little, and this thing could spread. Worry too much, and you get panic shopping for toilet paper at Costco. Here's a video that shows how if we adjust the exponential growth constant, it affects the total amount of people infected dramatically at around 7:40. In essence, if people are sufficiently worried, then the rates will drastically cut down. If people aren't worried at all, for example don't wash their hands, travel even when sick, etc., then this thing could spread to those 40 to 70% numbers that the so-called retard describes. 60% a little too high? Come on man, not even 0.6% of China got it. My guess is 5 mil. People are going to die in total. I know it sounds crazy like a number, but in the Western world there are many people who are over 60 plus and many of those have problems. We shouldn't forget also that if someone has had a virus and is in this age group, probably his living days will get less. Given the current growth in population every day, the total population would see the same number after at most a year. As this age group 60 to 65 plus usually do not have children. Anyway, time will tell. Stay healthy everyone and protect yourself and loved ones. That's a really dumb guess. You're a bit hostile, dude. We're all here to simply discuss. I'm not sure what the attitude is all about. I am expressing an opinion and you're saying dumb. Nothing more to say. Thank you. Dude, take a chill pill. His opinion could be dumb, but so could yours. No one really knows yet. He's not though, unfortunately. I think those numbers are with the containment methods, which they've figured out there's not much they can do about. No, Ebola was just as contagious as Corona is now. I'm calling BS on this graph. You have to look at the region or culture where Ebola took off. They were washing dead bodies and have extremely poor sanitation, and even then it only affected tight communities. You literally have to be bleeding from your eyes onto someone for them to get Ebola. Compare that to thousands of cases in developed first world countries plus asymptomatic transmission? Nah, fam. Look at rabies too. I can't give you rabies by sneezing next to you and yet its contagiousness is 10? Lol, there's a better chance of me getting coronavirus than us booting James. Full thread. It's a nasty cold season, which doesn't help. I rarely get a cold every couple of years, and I'm now getting over my second bad one within a month's time frame. For what it's worth, some natural supplements that are supposed to help with immunity, I take a couple of these because of their supposed anti-cancer benefits to help prevent recurrence. There will probably be a run on many of these types of items at Amazon. Even if it's true that 1 MLN will die. Why are you fear-mongering? Can we kill this thread already? It's like Bryant's U 2.0. The main thread is of much higher quality. Whether or not is right, wrong or out of line, threads like these are why the market is crashing. This kind of panic spreading is happening at mass scale. The lesson here is to look out for that in the future. He made this extremely inflammatory post days before the crash. Too much panic going on, people buying toilet paper by the bulk? That I just don't understand how that's going to help you. I stopped to buy some groceries at Walmart because it was on the way home from work. I was shocked. Toilet paper and any paper products all gone. As well as any peanut butter, water, pasta, almost any soup and a lot of canned goods. People are going nuts over this corona. The news media is responsible for all this overhype. Now don't get me wrong, you must be cautious. Does anyone remember the swine flu of 2009? 60 million infected and 300,000 hospitalized and thousands die in the US. Do you remember this type of hysteria then? Proof that the media is overhyped this big time. With what is going on in Italy, and all the hidden truth. You might be right. It looks like older people have no chance. I live in Holland. But if this virus is really that dangerous, then why did our governments didn't do much? They knew about the virus in China. But still everyone was going on vacation in Europe and around the world. Still people here are on vacation. And traveled around Europe and South America. Now they are coming back. And I bet they don't even test them. 1 week ago people still came back from Italy, Spain etc. They didn't test them. If people feel sick and ask for testing, they refuse to test them. They don't have enough tests and tests are not correct. They think almost everybody or everybody will get it in Holland. Don't get me wrong. I don't believe that my government have the best interest in their citizens. I mean that if it really is that fast and true air and all of that, then there would be much more people getting it and getting sick etc. People still traveling on a train, car, bus, plane, boats. People still work in crowded places, construction workers, they all work close to each other. No big outbreak. I think that is weird. If it is really so contagious. Then they say on the news hospitals are full. Here in Holland, even without this virus, they are full. They have no empty buildings. For disasters or viruses or war. If you want a new hip, guess what? Maybe after 4 or more weeks they will operate. If they need to make a picture or CT scan. People are like cows in the hospital. Big waiting rooms, etc. On a non-virus-free day, on a nice day. It will still be crowded in all hospitals. Because people live like crap. And eat like crap and follow the doctor with a pill for cholesterol. Or a pill for your 16-year-old daughter, antidepressiva. GEG. Now these F up for life. Because it's damn hard to live without it. Doctors don't know how to fix people with good health, eating etc. They have a big 5, 6, 7, 8-year study for Big Pharma to sell you another bag of pills. So if some people get sick, they can't handle it. It's just pathetic. Over the years they closed down a lot of hospitals here. When you get older and need help, they don't have enough people working in healthcare for the older people. People shit in their pants. And the same people that shit their pants have built this country. Now they can wait for 2 days, or if they are lucky some caretaker will help them the same day. Open your eyes. People get distracted for what is really going on in this world. Western world is getting worse every day. So I mean for a lot of weeks people to spread the virus like a madman. And it travels through air and can live for very long on metal etc. etc. First only older people will get sick, they say, then younger people, then this then that, blah blah blah. News change faster than a machine gun. But look how much are really dead in Italy or Holland or Spain. And how much people have it. If it really is so dangerous, then there should be dying millions of people. It's not bigger than the regular flu, I think. Regular flu is in the same period and much more people died from that. And they have tests but not enough. Also sometimes tests say positive, next time same person negative, etc. etc. Maybe they just have the regular flu. Only people over 65, all with other bad conditions, died. Still very low dead numbers. Regular flu much more. So fear. And 170 million people in lockdown for what? For crashing the economy. But economic, it's huge. And what about if they have a vaccine for this? Will it be obligated? So I think this will be more control over people, vaccines. After vaccination there will come a second wave and then a lot of people will die. Perhaps because we people believe that the people in power on this world think they have your best interests. I don't believe that. I know people with children and they didn't have vaccination done for all the children. And you can clearly see the difference. It's just poison. Bill Gates speaks about how they want less people on Earth. No cash money anymore. Everything will get much more expansive. If you don't obey, then you're screwed. Lol, just what I think about this stuff. Total slave control. Carrot. We're going to make it, brothers. This post is gonna do either one of two things: prove that you have a great foresight if 1 million or more people die. Prove that you watch too much of your favorite news channel, which by definition they're in the business of scaring people. Jeff Bezos mentioned one of qualities of great people is their ability to be right, not all the time but most of the time. It doesn't even matter how they do it. Even if it is a hunch. I believe you will be completely wrong. My prediction is that deaths in the USA won't be more than 20,000. I'm not here to discuss how bad even one death is. It has to do with more than health or viruses. The fact the whole world has stopped for this bring a whole different message. Look at every other mass hysteria virus, Ebola, SARS, the Spanish flu, and by the numbers this is one of the weakest ones. The problem with pandemics is that if people take the proper precautions and limit their exposure, the government could enforce a quarantine with martial law and drastically limit the number of deaths, but that would only reinforce your opinion that it was no big deal or a nothing burger if nothing is done and the virus runs its course uninhibited. The medical system may be completely overwhelmed. In addition to the deaths from C0VLD19, the people who could have been saved from other conditions will be unable to receive care, increasing the all-cause death rate. Brian Sue 2.0. I heart on her high horse. Savage. Wow, really, the common flu? This is the pandemic of our lifetime and is very serious. Thank you for taking the time. You literally just came in and lifted all of the anxiety right off from under me. It's comforting to know I shouldn't be worried even though the world is at a standstill. I'm just going to focus on what I can control. Action. No shit, Sherlock. You're replying to a 20-day-old post. Things have changed quite a bit since then. I underestimated how highly contagious the virus is. But I stand by my point. The flu kills around 500,000 people a year. COVID-19 has killed under 20,000 so far and it has managed to stop the world for who knows how long. I'm more scared of the economic consequences than the virus itself. With that being said, just because I'm not at risk of dying from the virus it doesn't mean I'm not doing my part. I live in Spain and in the last 10 days I've just gotten out of the house once to buy groceries and somehow I managed to catch it. I'm pretty sure I had it last week. But I'm almost recovered now. I call bullshit on the hysteria and manipulation while watching my back at the same time. An old sailing proverb would apply well here: always one hand for the boat and one hand for yourself. A few facts to put things in perspective. According to the CDC, roughly 50 million people worldwide contracted the flu over the past 5 months. That's right. The flu. 50 million people. That works out to over 300,000 people per day, which is pretty typical for a flu season. Moreover, the CDC estimates that more than 50,000 people died of the flu during this past season. But where was the mass panic? Where was the stock market crash? Where was the hysteria? What predicted here early March? Where are you, James? While I understand that perspective, I believe it is fundamentally flawed, and not based in reality, unfortunately. Firstly, let's talk numbers. I did not find worldwide numbers from the CDC, so I am not sure what your source is. The CDC only predicts the burden of flu on the US, as far as I could find. Please correct me if I'm wrong. According to this official CDC website, note that these numbers are spread over a period. If we look at flu cases both in the US and globally for last season, this is what the curve looks like. Source: when you look at just the numbers, and are not used to looking at graphs like this, It looks like flu and C0VLD19 are very similar. But they are not. Looking at the total number of new positive cases for flu, there are 50k new flu cases in a typical. At the height of the curve here we are seeing new cases globally in a that's a much more rapid spreading of the pathogen. Second, when looking at this data, we have decades of flu data from previous years to compare to. The curve of infection and mortality looks similar year over year. We know what to expect, and have adjusted our healthcare system to accommodate these cases, as well as cases of all other diseases as a result. C0VLD19 has no data except what we have from this current epidemic. We literally have no idea how many people this will affect, and are only looking at the current growth curve, which is starkly more steep than any flu we have ever seen before. So it certainly looks like it could be dramatically more impactful than the flu. To draw a business analogy, the flu is a tried and true brick-and-mortar business that's been serving millions of people each year, predictably and reliably. C0VLD19 is a fast-growing startup with hockey stick growth, with a huge total addressable market that could be the biggest business the world has ever seen. Sure, the startup could fizzle out like its predecessors H1N1, SARS, etc., but it could be a unicorn that takes the world by storm, and the sky's the limit. Right now, it appears to be taking the world by storm. Following the conclusions from above, the practical handling of the pathogen is very difficult. Firstly, there are many therapies and treatments for flu. For example, we know that bacterial infections often follow flu, so we provide therapy with antibiotics. We know that certain antivirals are effective in mitigating flu's symptoms, depending on the strain. Doctors also know a relatively predictable course the disease will take. This makes treatment relatively easy and predictable, even in the case where flu results in death. With C0VLD19, we are flying blind. There are no therapies for C0VLD19, aside from providing a ventilator when breathing becomes too difficult. And in that case, ventilators may only be prolonging death, since many C0VLD19 patients are on ventilators far longer than recommended 25 to 30 days versus 3 to 4 days, because there are no other known therapies. The only therapy we know that has any effect. Ventilators are also expensive in every way. They require a hospital bed, hourly attention from nurses, daily attention from doctors, and relatively expensive piece of medical equipment. So even if there are just as many cases of C0VLD19 as there are flu, which is likely to not be the case, the known therapy is vastly more difficult and expensive. And, of course, our healthcare systems are built around known conditions, like the flu, and including other things, everything from broken legs to the sniffles to AIDS. C0VLD19 is not factored into the equation at all. So the systems are already under their normal load or burden, that is, still dealing with all those flu cases and every other disease we know about, and have to deal with the additional burden of this new pathogen that we have no idea how to handle. The existing healthcare system is like a pint glass that's consistently 50 to 90% full. Adding C0VLD19 to the mix, with no known therapies, is like pouring a gallon of water onto the top of it. That means C0VLD19 patients will suffer, as well as everyone else who is already expected to be within the healthcare system. There's more to this story, obviously, but the main point is that you're comparing a very well-known disease, flu in its various strains, to a new pathogen with a very unpredictable outcome that looks very grim. Also, worth a read, in case anyone wants to know what symptoms they might be in for with a mild case. It's not the flu. The more we go, this thing is starting to look a lot like. 2 issues here: 1. This article is over 5 days old. The situation is very different now. 2. Off Guardian is not a credible news site, and is known to lean to conspiracy theories over facts. Exactly. Even the quoted #s about the Diamond Princess is wrong. People just quit watching at some point and assume the story of the Diamond Princess is over. It's not. Today 10 dead, not 7, 15 still struggling for their lives, many of which are likely to die. I'm quoting below another post on another thread so I don't have to retype, but it's extremely relevant here too. I hear that this Instagram post caused quite an hysteria from the peanut gallery. Envy is an ugly thing, and your worst enemy. My thoughts when I saw this post were: where are the grenadines exactly? Wonder how long this boat is, how many cabins, what kind of autonomy you get with this, geez, that a nice sunset, how long could I last on a boat like that, etc. What about you? I failed to understand the continued both past and present of the number of deaths via the flu annually. If we did not have a vaccine for the flu, the number would be far greater, and we fortunately have a very good understanding of the flu. There appears to be no effective treatment for the coronavirus. At some point the isolation needs to end, but we have dug into a point where the numbers will never stop being reported, and it won't be gone for a long time. People are going to be living in fear for the foreseeable future. Thanks, China. Because people are idiots. It won't be that bad, no, you hope it won't be that bad. Unfortunately for the rest of us, hope is not a viable cure. Even if C0VLD19 has the same death rate as the flu, it doesn't. It's far more infectious. About 50 million get the flu annually. We're looking at 100 million minimum for C0VLD19 in the US. Possibly 1 to 2 million dead worst case. It's just the flu. You better wish it's not even that. There are 3 groups of thought here. 1. People that read the updated projections and act as if the sky is falling. 2. People that read the same updated projections and act as if it's a nothing burger. 3. People that take prudent precautions to mitigate their risks. I want to believe that most people are in group 3. Most people think they are in group 3. Unfortunately, prudent precautions is subjective. The person who hears the projections and takes the advice to stay 6 feet away from others whenever they leave the house looks like a lunatic to the person who hears the projections and thinks 3 feet distance is prudent. I see this happening a lot when I go out to take my family on a hike. I think back to all the time I spent in Asia. Culturally there it's normal to pack mass transportation like sardines. Zero concept of any personal space. I agree with you, but calling something not credible is only meaningful if there are alternative sources that are credible. There are not. The reason sites like this get taken seriously is because the real news outlets have undermined their own credibility to the point that people trust them about as much as an email from a Nigerian prince. All news is essentially fake news, which is a problem that in the long run is even more dangerous than this deadly virus. Exhibit A. This is famous MSNBC host Joy Reid mocking the CEO of MyPillow and prattling on about how this is like Celebrity Apprentice etc. Totally fails to mention that the reason this dude is in the rose garden next to the president is because he retooled his factory to produce masks. Yeah, the guy likes to talk about religion. But is that really the news here? Anyone thought of starting a news outlet paid for 100% by subscribers? Like Consumer Reports, but for things that matter. Sort of, but not quite. When you fact-check that linked news outlet, they are often factually incorrect. Just because there are no credible sources, doesn't mean that you can trust the first thing you hear that you like. Which is why large swathes of intelligent people tend to not believe anything they hear, and disengage, leaving the dumbest among us to make the decisions. Also, I can't fact-check once something gets a few degrees outside my field of expertise. I can't replicate scientific experiments or spot methodological weaknesses in a peer-reviewed study. So I trust authority figures based on their perceived legitimacy, because life isn't long enough to become an expert in everything. So does everyone else. No one admits it though. Admitting it makes us face how vulnerable we are. Hi, my name's, and I'm an authorityholic. This the difference between A and A. In scientific reasoning, A is an assumption made before any research has been completed for the sake of testing. A on the other hand is a principle set to explain phenomena already supported by data. So, a hypothesis is merely speculation based on biased opinion. And theories are only facts based on the assumed knowledge in any given time. One thing I did not expect was the ugly being exposed. This whole situation showed sides of people that caught me off guard. Having said that, I will extend my break from the forum, but I will be personally playing instead. And please be on the lookout in your inbox. Please kindly PM me if I miss you. P.S. Contrary to what some think, I didn't sit on the floor on shrooms and come up with all of this as some willy-thrilly. I came up with all of my original posts. The red flags that kept appearing during my analysis warranted me to go further than to just share my early March stock market predictions between my own close trading group. But for me to scream as loud as possible. If my yells had the chance to alter just one small chain of event thing for just one person that directly or indirectly saved a life, it was worth it all. And I will never ever know, and it doesn't matter if I do anyways. Peace be with you all. And? Virus has been going on for 5 months. 74,000 deaths. How much longer until 1 million deaths? 10 years? 20? Who the hell took the picture? Is this out at sea? Drone? Probably drone. If you're a billionaire with a yacht, having a drone costs you virtually nothing. At the risk of, it could be in less than 100 days at current daily death rate. It could be as soon as 2 to 3 weeks if exponential growth continues. Based on this post and many others, I'm guessing you're not familiar with. Looks like you were right. I knew back around the beginning of this thread that this virus was overhyped. The reason ?1. I have a molecular biology degree too. I look at data, both recorded and personally observed. 3. Good understanding of the geopolitics. 4. Know how viruses work. Also researched past similar pandemics and looked for data and patterns. 5. Not easily manipulated. I think it's a damn joke that people are still wearing masks. And the stupid part is people are unknowingly giving our rights away. Notice how now in stores they've added permanent plexiglass, have markers for social distancing, and everyone has to have a mask. The other night I was at the store and they were having recordings going over the intercom reminding people to stay 6 feet apart and wash your hands. Appears to be we are seeing the beginnings of a scary future. Anyway, virus is bullshit and overhyped. But I thought this new normal was for our safety. Problem is, infected is not the same as death rate. Doesn't matter how much it spreads or how many it infects. The only major thing you need to worry about is mortality rate, since it's a measure of a pathogen's deadliness. No need for fear-mongering or guesses. Some people have a misconception that a virus can spontaneously and miraculously change character. This isn't the bubonic plague, and this virus has no chance to ever be as deadly as it. I can bet you all the money in my bank account the peak of this virus has come and passed. Next season it will have a similar predictable pattern. The only way any of this will change is if politics are injected into it and more manipulation is thrown around. But we can already expect that, which is why we are here in our current state of events. It will get worse, but only because corrupt globalists will say so. You don't need to bet, you'll pay up no matter what. Like everybody else here, or who do you think is financing this $2 trillion heist? It's done, the peak is over. They'll probably keep it on the slow boil for a while longer though. No one here is fear-mongering or guessing. At the time of this post, the number of cases and deaths was on an exponential increase. Left unmitigated, it would have continued to rise exponentially, as that is how a pathogen's spread works in the wild. I'm not sure about your credentials as a molecular biologist, but that news surprises me since everyone in my network who is a published scientist disagrees with your stance. I also have several years' experience in the health sciences and biomedical engineering, And I'm married to a woman with a PhD in microbiology. When looking at the sparse data at the time of my post, we both came to the same conclusion that there was a significant risk to our healthcare system. Not everyone who thinks there is or was cause for concern is fear-mongering. Not everyone who believes that this is a nothing burger is woke. In a situation like this, there's lots of opinion mixed with fact. This pandemic has been an interesting exercise at seeing how few people are capable of cleaving the two apart. I was curious on your thoughts in regard to some of these points. Do you agree? Is there anything you would add to what this gentleman said? Stated at the beginning of the pandemic that it would end up being a nothing burger. I was curious as to your thoughts on this. Any thoughts regarding his interpretation of the situation? Do you agree? Disagree? Have anything to add? Come on, don't bait them. Is out of his element and has a lot to learn. Many of us gave shit because of his arrogance. I will say he was right about a lot, and that might even be dumb luck, but his arrogant combative attitude is what cost him. Isn't arrogant or combative, he's ignorant. While he has a poor track record on this forum, he's stuck around and put up with the tough love. He may never come around, but I don't think he deserves to be made into a show. I can't believe you would imply I had some ulterior motive other than genuine curiosity and a desire to encourage lively debate. I hope so too, but I think most people are either one or two. At least they are the loudest. Everyone is an expert apparently. Sweden is considered one of the worst countries in Europe at the moment. I am from there and have a couple of family members who work with elderly people and in hospitals. According to my family members and friends, there are a lot of elderly people dying because of corona, but they are not recorded as such. Since they are old and have other sicknesses, it's not counted as a C0VLD19 related death. I started reading in some local forums and can see that other people are reporting the same thing, all over the country. It's already known that the government is not showing the real statistics, but it's most likely much, much worse than people initially thought. We are talking about a large number of deaths. Much greater than what is already shown. What surprises me with this, is how many people are indifferent to other people's lives. The narcissism and egoism is quite saddening to observe. I did laugh reading posts. However, thank you for the post. You are right. And for what it's worth, I hope you do succeed with your ventures both now and the future. But I think when you're out of your element and still learning as we all are, it's like said in the other thread, more reading and learning, and understanding, less talking. Lol, I'm not picking on Mr. Value. I'm actually impressed by his willingness to learn and experiment. People give him crap, but I think he's just young. A fair point too, no such thing as a stupid question as they. The prediction was correct. I mean, is it really a bold prediction when we're not counting based on season? Edit, sorry, I mistook this, confused you with someone else. Lol. Very unfortunately. This guy was right too, unfortunately. 991,000 this week, so just barely. Next week, allegedly for me at least, no one in my family and company has died. Scary indeed. I'm going to start stockpiling toilet paper for when it reaches 2 million. Next year. That's less than 0.1% of the global population of almost 8 treble O now. How is that for the 3 to 5% they claimed, after 6 months? 1,000 died in 1969, and the population was half than today. They were not that pussified though. Gang, you are just witnessing the power of large numbers, and peoples to comprehend them. The lack of context in the media turned a fairly weak novel virus into the greatest overreaction and coordinated mass hysteria in human history. Here are some very basic facts. Earth has about 7.8 billion people. Source, every human dies. That means, 60 million humans die each year. Source, there are 365 days in a year. The total population of the San Francisco, dies every 5 days. All year long in the 10 months since this virus started, 50 million people died. Normally 1 million of them had C0VLD19. Basic arithmetic follows: of all the 50 million people who died in the last 10 months, 2% had C0VLD19. 98% of the people who died in the last 10 months didn't have C0VLD. Even if you were Chicken Little and thought every single C0VLD death was mortality, then it would be 1m deaths out of 51m total deaths, further reducing the percentage of C0VLD deaths to 1.9% of all deaths. This was the biggest non-story sold to the public. As someone who is traveling around the world currently, I am just shocked to see what the US and European media sold their citizens. It's just baffling. And now we talk about cases when someone gets a swab up their nose? Not when they are sick? Not when they are in the hospital? Are you kidding? Why did it happen? 24/7 media with an incentive to get eyeballs, using fear, so as to sell more advertising. Politicized world where you get an insane desire for hero and villains, or right versus wrong, Trump versus Fauci, in whichever category you personally assign them. Social media that allows the most idiotic ideas and fears to propagate amongst a compliant public faster than any virus can spread. Lack of context in any reporting death counters. Case counting? Really? All four of those combined to produce the most rambunctious and obnoxious non-story in human history. Whoever got rich off this mainstream media? The guy selling those $25 metal things to push elevator buttons, and the companies selling face masks and disinfectant? Good for them. They pull the biggest hood over people's eyes ever. Numbers don't mean anything without context. 1 million dead from C0VLD. This is meaningless. How many of those were about to die anyway? How many people were people with C0VLD that died of something else? When you answer those questions, the numbers start to mean something. And the headline loses its shock appeal. The number that would mean something is, how many people died, specifically from C0VLD infections, that were not expected to die for, say, at least 12 months. That is probably a lot less than 1 million. For context, 1.35 million people will die in car accidents this year. A similar number will die from heart disease. Edit had some similar thoughts to me. Yay, we just added another leading cause of death to compete with car accidents and heart disease. What's the big deal? The long-term health effects aren't great even if you survive, and cramming hospitals full of C0VLD patients means other people won't get surgeries and emergency care and will die, and there will be a lot of lost productivity from people who are out sick for a week or a month, not to mention medical bills a lot of people will have trouble paying. And being dismissive of C0VLD because it affects people worst when they have other health problems is cynical to say the least. And unlike AIDS or lung cancer, there isn't an easy way for vulnerable or risk-averse people to avoid C0VLD if morons walk around without their masks in public. But yeah, it's all about math comprehension and the media playing politics. Gimme a break. No, it wasn't. He predicted that 1 million plus will die from corona, and not that 1 million will die with corona and 2.6 other diseases on average, where it's unclear what can be considered as the main cause of death. 90% plus are 60 years and older. For example, one comorbidity is chronic lower respiratory disease. It's chronic, so no germs, but work environment, etc. Those who died from corona without any comorbidities are probably around 60.000 according to the CDC's 6% statement, and that is worldwide. If this is enough to warrant a panic of such a scale, the bankruptcy of large parts of the world, making trillions in debt for future generations to pay, then I don't really have anything to say anymore, except that all this prudence is in fact enabling those schemers, and they will get even more brazen in the future, until we live in caves sucking on cold potatoes. Think about how stupid the average person is, and then realize that half of them are stupider than that. Never underestimate the power of stupid people in large groups. If you have selfish, ignorant citizens, you're going to have selfish, ignorant leaders. George Carlin's nothing like a good old pandemic to prove a comedian's words right. The point is, look at how the global economy has been shut down, and freedoms completely trampled on, for something that is less dangerous than driving cars. We all know the risk of driving cars or being near a road. But we don't rule out lives by that risk, or impinge on the freedoms of others. I'm not being dismissive of C0VLD. When someone comes down with C0VLD, it's brutal and horrific. By using the above stats, I'm not being dismissive of car accidents. Or AIDS, one of the next biggest global killers after car accidents. I'm putting the risk in context. I agree overall with the sentiment, however. A counterpoint you should consider in your argument: not everyone gets into a car accident every year, or dies from said car accident. Not everyone will get C0VLD either, but we've reduced the risk by enacting these rules. Kind of like road safety rules. If we didn't enact these rules, then in theory everyone could get infected with C0VLD. Now imagine that. If you changed the ratio of how many cars got into an accident every year, to every car gets into an accident every year, multiple times per year, then those deaths of 1 million jump drastically. For example, if on average it takes 100 car accidents to kill one person, and 1 million people die in car accidents, then we can assume there are 100 million car accidents per year. However, not all 360 million Americans drive. So that's another factor which I am not equating here. Now, what if we have 400 million car accidents per year? Well, those deaths go from 1 million to 4 million. What if we go from 400 million car accidents to 1 billion car accidents? As cars can get into multiple accidents. Now we have 10 million people dying. Anyway, my numbers aren't correct, but I'm just trying to show you that it's a nothing burger until it is. Diseases like C0VLD spread geometrically and exponentially. Car accidents do not. If the virus killed otherwise healthy people, that might be valid, and yes it does, but at a near zero rate. But it mainly seems to affect those who are chronically ill or already near death. We can use Sweden as a test case for this example. Some Swedish cities have a population density that is higher than London, so it's a valid comparison. If you get the total deaths data off the Swedish government websites, you can see a spike in daily deaths. And no change against previous years in quarterly deaths. A daily spike with no change in the quarterly spike suggests that people who were near death got sick and all died at once. On a longer term scale, decrease in GDP correlates strongly with life expectancy. With the economy wrecked, we can expect a decrease in life expectancy over the next few years as things slowly recover. Irish guy here, and with a small island country of approximately 5 million, it's been pretty easy to monitor population deaths pre-pandemic and during the pandemic, and the results have been clear, that C0VLD is vastly more infectious, more dangerous, and has more lasting effects on a sizable number of both young and old victims, with the new term being used. Personally, I have lost an elderly couple I was friends with, neither of whom was in any danger of dying pre-C0VLD. A workmate early 20s got it months ago and hasn't recovered fully due to FACER groups are being formed here trying to monitor symptoms and effects. Studies are now showing serious brain chemistry deterioration in some victims too. One of our main TV presenters has charted the effects long C0VLD has had on her too. Thankfully we as a modern secular society were able to pull together, and apart from a very small minority we were able to maintain a general mask-wearing manifesto which crushed the first wave, though we are now moving into full gear fighting the predicted second wave which has just begun. It has been almost unbelievable to watch the slow-motion train crash that the USA has become, where even the most basic common-sense medical guidelines have been politicized and used as rallying calls for fear, racism, hate and division. But it hasn't been surprising. As a teacher with 25 years of experience in history, politics, sociology and ethnic conflict, it's clear to me that the binary divide in American politics has been that has been deliberately engineered for several decades now, and ironically it has nothing to do with America at all. The strategy of the religious right has for decades been to court the Republican Party and to use the right-wing media like Fox etc. to push the USA into more and more wars in the Middle East, with a focus on the Holy Land. But why? Fundamentalist religious groups like the evangelical movement have adopted a twisted reading of the Bible, and in short they believe that by starting a third world war they will bring back Jesus. It was a similar twisted reading of the Bible that sparked the Crusades a millennia ago. To our eternal shame, it was a fundamentalist Irish preacher in the 1800s called John Darby who helped spread this bizarre movement. Basically, this fake guru was run out of Ireland, but found an enthusiastic audience in the Bible Belt with his fake guru sales pitch known as recommended book. As recent wars have ended up with America being bogged down in unwinnable wars, and Republicans have decided to oppose any more wars, especially against Iran, a country that hasn't attacked another country in over 2,000 years. As a result, the religious right have now dropped any pretense of democracy and are openly moving America towards fascism with their medieval cries of this C0VLD pandemic is merely exposing their long-term strategy to create more and more war and suffering in the world, particularly for the people of the Middle East who just want to be left alone. Remember, any act, no matter how cruel, sadistic, or evil, can be justified and celebrated through the prism of religious belief. Trump's base and their endless diatribe of lies, distortions, projections, blame-shifting, cognitive dissonance and denial of over 1 million deaths is only a portent of much worse to come. And there are no easy answers. Stay safe out there. I can't tell if this is a prediction, an alarm, or a sales pitch. Maybe all three. I don't know. To me it all made sense about what he said. He did not sound religious or fanatic to me at all, and he personally met one of the 1,800 people out of 5 million that died in Ireland according to official numbers, so we should kind of worship him. If you know what I mean. Just a quick question here to not waste much time. Were you anti-war in 2011 when Obama attacked Libya? I have been anti-war since 2003, all the way. Bush, Obama, and Trump. Glad we avoided Iran. Also against Putin's Crimea cringe. All armies are the enemy of the people. Definitely. I'm anti-violence except as a last resort. I'm not a pacifist though. There's a difference. I think you are totally right. But I think we need to take all factors into account. 1. The mortality of C0VLD isn't that high, but what if it was? What if the mortality was on the level of Ebola? We have a big problem with a disease with just a high infection rate but a rather low mortality rate. But if both were high, we had a gigantic problem. And it's only a question of when something like this is going to happen too. Mass infection, which would happen without social distancing, masks, etc. We had a big problem with hospital capacity. With a hospitalization rate of around there would be a massive problem. Even if that rate dropped, it wouldn't be able to get handled. 3. Yes, it's only 2 million. But it's still 2 million. And sadly, even if it's not a lot, also young or people without prior conditions die. I personally don't think that it's something we should take too seriously and change our lives completely, but we shouldn't act recklessly. The media is making a terrible job right now. But in times like this, we need a good source of information, and in my mind, one of many should be the government. And sadly, they aren't making a great job. Not only in the US, where it's pretty clear that they try to downplay it, ATM at least for me, But in other countries like Brussels, UK, French, etc. we see similar problems. I don't get how you could be pro-war. At least physical war. I don't have that many problems with economical war, sanctions, etc. than an actual war. Just don't see the benefit for all parties involved.